and welcome to another episode of Ask an Assistant, the podcast for executive assistants and the people that love us. I'm your host, Jess Lindgren. Let's get to work. This week, there is no question. It's roughly quarterly time. A few previous roughly quarterly projects include cleaning your physical and virtual desktops, 2 separate episodes, refreshing templates and canned responses, and touching up email signatures company-wide. These can be huge or small projects depending on your company size, your IT capabilities, and whatever amount of time that you are able to set aside to tackle a once a quarter type project. You can find all of those episodes if you just search roughly quarterly and Jess Lindgren or Ask an Assistant, they pop right up. This quarter, however, it is time to focus on you. I would love for any and or all of you listening to do what I have done this quarter, which is to get your professional life in order, especially if you've been in the same role for ages. And what I mean by that is it's a really great idea, no matter how happy you are in your role, whatever your plans may be, to stay or move on. Dust off and update your resume. I was just talking with my husband about this the other day, and, he's understandably a little bit nervous about how things are going in the tech sector. And he was like, I think the last time I updated my resume was like when I got this job, which literally for him was almost 20 years ago. So never a bad idea to dust off and update your resume. Liven up your LinkedIn profile if that's your thing. Alternatively, consider spiffing up the social media platform of your choice, or you can update or create at least a one-page website that you can use as a portfolio, kind of a LinkedIn alternative, if you will. And finally, I'd love to recommend that you hit up a networking event or 5. Diving in a bit deeper to those headlines, if you, like me, have been in your role for a really long time, or like my husband, it's entirely possible that you haven't thought about your resume in a while. Things are super weird here in 2025, and I cannot imagine they're going to get less weird in 2026. There's all kinds of layoffs happening across several industries. Like I mentioned, tech, AI is quote unquote taking over some classes of jobs. I think that it's going to be a temporary, we can just do this with AI. And then there's going to be enough problems and mistakes that companies are going to realize that they do in fact need humans with thinking brains in those mission critical roles. And politicians are playing games with people's livelihoods. It's weird. Let's just call a spade a spade. Here in the United States where I live, things are weird in 2025. Sprucing up your resume at least once a year. The resume is definitely not something you need to do once a quarter. But all of these projects are meant to be, you take some time once a quarter to sit down, do one of those things that's just been hanging out. Like I said earlier, there's a whole list of options if you're looking for options. And the option I'm offering you this quarter is to spruce up your resume. Doing it once a year is a great thing to do, regardless of how weird or, I don't want to say normal, because what even is normal, but how weird or not weird things may be. It's very easy to get lost in day-to-day operations and not realize all of the absolutely incredible things that you've done at the end of a week, a month, a quarter, a year, a decade. Really sit down, think on all of those awesome things that you've done, write them down, and make sure that your resume reflects your awesomeness. And please, 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 if at all possible, hire a human to help if you're not up to doing it yourself. Writing about yourself is weird. It's awkward. Some of the best money that I've spent over the years was on someone to write the copy for my website and for someone else to make my resume for me. I don't know. I have a hard time being like, look how awesome I am. So it's really nice to take your accomplishments, give them to someone who is a professional, and have them write it up in the way that makes sense and reads to the rest of the world so they understand how great you are. Moving right along to LinkedIn. I am a very reluctant LinkedIn user myself, so I'm not going to sit here and try to convince you to become a regular. I definitely go in fits and starts. I've met some very interesting people there, and honestly, even landed my very first client on LinkedIn back in 2014. I had changed my job title from executive assistant at my previous company to, founder and main gal at Gal Friday 612. And within like a week of that, someone local in Minneapolis reached out and was just like, I have been looking for a Gal Friday for years, and here you are. And it turned out to be a really cool, really unique opportunity that I had for about a year as a contractor. And yeah, it can be really cool. Like it really can be. But these days, honestly, I find myself fielding so much junk from people that are hawking MLM or people who want to be guests on my podcast where I do not host guests. So it's a hit or miss kind of thing, and you get out of it what you put into it. I've been on LinkedIn since like the very beginning. I want to say it came out sometime early 2000s, like the early aughts, like maybe early to mid, maybe. I remember one of my first jobs out of college. So I want to say this would have been like 2005, 2006, 2007, somewhere in there. I remember like, wow, how cool. You don't just have to, your resume isn't just this private document that just lives with you on physical printed pieces of paper or on a thumb drive. We all used to walk around with thumb drives with our resume on it in several formats. Now you can put your professional accomplishments out for the whole world to see anytime they want. It's very different today in 2025 than it was when it first came out. It has really become Facebook for work, and I'm not a very good Facebook user either. All that said, I have seen LinkedIn do some really interesting things for people. Like I said, for me, I landed a client there. How cool is that? Like did no advertising, did not reach out to this person. They reached out to me. I've definitely seen the occasional person who has lost their job gain incredible traction with their post, whether it's, I've seen it all from like, this isn't about me, this is about everybody, to total sob stories about this is about me, because job loss is very personal. And I've seen some posts gain some really incredible traction, but I don't have any information or stats or anything on how or if said LinkedIn traction translated into anything meaningful, like a new job for that person. But every so often I do see in my feed someone who, for whatever reason, lost a job, got a new job, singing the praises of somebody else. Like every so often you do see the occasional post on LinkedIn with just incredible tens, if not hundreds of thousands of little emoji reactions, hundreds, if not thousands of comments. Like it can be really incredible. But it can also be just a minefield of junk, just like any social media these days. So if LinkedIn, if Facebook for work is up your alley, give it a go. Like so many internet things, it really seems like the algorithm rewards consistency. So figure out what you would like to talk about on LinkedIn, do it consistently, and let me know how it goes. Because definitely, like I said, I go in fits and starts, and when I am regularly posting or even scheduling ahead, because LinkedIn has a really great schedule ahead feature. When I did really well with that, I was seeing some pretty good traction in terms of views and comments, but like not translating into anything else. So the motivation for me isn't there as much, and I hope that people find me directly through the podcast, although LinkedIn is a great place to be posting that. So kind of a double-edged sword. Maybe I'll get back on LinkedIn in 2026. We'll see. And if LinkedIn isn't your thing, I would really like to suggest that you consider setting up a one-page website, or you could even think about like a newsletter. Like Substack is really popular right now. Button Down is another great alternative to a Substack style thing. Something that you control that isn't social media. Remember, if it's free, you are the product and your data is being sold to advertisers or worse. So just something that you control that isn't social media, where that isn't free or is free, because Substack is free. I'll have to dig more into that. But basically a place where you can showcase your work. Like I said earlier, LinkedIn, when it first came out, was so cool because it did make you a little more available to the world at large. And so if LinkedIn isn't your jam, which I totally understand, having a place where you can at least point folks, put it in your email signature, just some kind of place where you can showcase your work, even if it's just the bare bones of your resume. Like, I would not recommend putting your actual resume up there with your like telephone number and email address attached to it. But just a little one-page landing page type thing. This is totally optional. I've had a newsletter for over a decade. I've sent out maybe 10 newsletters in that time, though I do send a weekly bonus podcast episode to anyone who is a paid member, askanassistant.substack.com. So if you're interested in hearing about the ups and downs from my week, that's where you can do that. But if you do consider creating a website, Substack, whatever, if it doesn't already exist, think about it, or freshen up with some new copy and pictures if it does. Send out a roughly quarterly update to your subscribers, which I am hopefully going to do yet this week, and let me know how it goes for you. And finally, let's touch on networking events. For those of us that work from home, pets and plants have so much value for our mental and physical well-being, especially if you have a dog that's getting you out 2-3 times a day for a walk. Like, that's really great for your physical well-being. But they have very limited vocabulary. Like, my plants, the most that they say is, "Hi, my leaves are dying, please water me." It's been quite the transition from outside in the humidity this summer to inside and dry with the heat in a old drafty house. So if we're in the office though, it's likely that we see the same people day in and day out. And as administrative professionals, specifically, most of us are executive assistants. We likely don't have all that many in the office in the way of peers. It's all in who you know. And every good thing that has happened in my professional life has come from networking. 95%, I would say, or more of that being in-person networking. You never know when you meet someone who you can help. You never know who can help you. And you never know what magical things might come from those connections. Specifically, my life for the last 12 years is a direct result of a coffee meeting in Minneapolis. Like back in 2013, at a co-working space in Minneapolis, what began as a coffee chat with someone who was in a similar field to me as an executive assistant. They heard of an opportunity, passed it my way. It began as a very part-time role while I was living in Minnesota, which graduated into a full-time salaried role over time. I spent several years living in California. Now I've spent several years living in New York, truly some of the best years of my life. And I'm so grateful. And literally all of that can be traced back to a single coffee meeting in a co-working space in Minneapolis. You can be happy as a clam at your current role, no intentions to move on, but updating your resume, tidying up your LinkedIn or your Substack, your website, what have you, attending a networking event or 5 can really have a profound impact on your professional life. Give any and or all of my tips a whirl. Tell me about it. Would love to hear from you always. While there was no question involved in today's episode, I always love to hear from you. Please don't hesitate to reach out via askanassistant.com. Ask the questions that are burning a hole in your brains. And that's all for this week. I hope that you're happy, healthy, hydrated, or as many of the 3 as you can be. And until next week, take care.